From the moment Danny Koker first flipped the sign on Count's Customs, viewers knew they were in for more than a glossy parade of classic cars. They were about to see the real-life engine of a small business, the crew. Over the seasons, we've watched metallic masterpieces roar out of the shop doors, but behind each polished hood lay personalities, ambitions, and, yes, the occasional misfire. For years, Danny has praised his team, Kevin's paintwork, Ryan's metalcraft, and Horny Mike's upholstery magic. Yet even in a shop that thrives on precision and passion, not every wrench turns smoothly. Tonight, for the first time ever, Danny Koker pulls back the shop curtains to reveal the 5 worst employees to ever clock in at Count's Customs. No sugarcoating, no cutscenes. These are the mechanics and fabricators whose mistakes cost time and money and tested Danny's patience more than a revving engine at idle. We're talking botched restorations that ended in body shop nightmares, tardiness that stalled entire production lines, and miscommunications so tangled they made engine wiring look straightforward. Why spill this much chrome-polished dirt? Because the legend of Count's Customs isn't just about success under Danny's watchful eye. It's about the gritty reality of running a premium restoration shop in Las Vegas, where deadlines are as unforgiving as summer temperatures. Every missed weld and every mislabeled part chips away at the reputation Danny built since inheriting the business from his father. And in an industry where a single viral video can crater credibility, accountability isn't optional, it's mandatory. So who made the cut? Who turned up the heat on Danny's fuse? We'll count them down from number 5 to number 1. And by the end, you'll understand why Danny Koker is as feared for his standards as he is celebrated for his charisma. Dodge these pitfalls, and you might just thrive under the neon glow of the strip. Ignore them, and you'll find yourself on this list, watching your toolkit collect dust in the back corner. Number 5 didn't earn his spot with malice, but rather a spectacular string of mishaps that could only happen when good intentions collide with slippery deadlines. This was Alex, the welder whose contractions never matched his projections. On 3 separate occasions, Danny asked him to patch quarter panels on a 1967 Impala, only to find gaps large enough to see daylight. Each misaligned weld meant recutting metal, resanding panels, and ghosting down fresh layers of primer. Time that should have been spent fine-tuning that car's engine went into perfecting patches that never fit. Danny tried coaching him, late-night one-on-ones under fluorescent lights, step-by-step breakdowns of tack welding techniques. But one botched job after another showed that skill under pressure doesn't always follow classroom training. Still, Alex wasn't a lost cause. His passion was genuine. He just hadn't yet learned that in this shop, perfection isn't negotiable. When he finally got it right, Danny patted him on the back like a proud father, only to remind him, "Don't let it slip next time." It was a tempered victory, proof that even number 5s can redeem themselves with enough sweat and patience. Number 4 slipped into trouble on the opposite end of the spectrum, communication. Meet Shelley, the parts coordinator who could find any hard-to-source trim in the country, but somehow never got Danny's memos. Mornings began with boxes of brand new parts cluttering the front office, and afternoons ended with critical vacuum hoses missing from the day's builds. Without vital components, cars ground to a halt on the lift, and Danny's signature rolling deadlines turned into full stops. Every late afternoon, he'd walk down the parts aisle, clipboard in hand, ticking off missing items and reminding Shelley that lead times can make or break a Monday morning schedule. She had the drive, she had the resources. But when Danny launched into a rant about misplaced requisitions after discovering $10,000 worth of panels dumped in the wrong bay, everyone knew miscommunication could cost more than downtime. It could cost the team's morale. Despite her logistical genius, Shelley's habit of filing emails in red status without action earned her a spot on this list. Because in a flash build industry, a forgotten order isn't just an oversight. It's a garage full of frustrated mechanics and an irate shop owner on the line. Number 3 nearly derailed one of the biggest restorations in Count's Customs history. Meet Ricardo, nicknamed Ricochet for the way he'd bounce between projects, leaving half-finished frames behind like unwatched chess pieces. Danny entrusted him with a 1963 Corvette Stingray that needed a total chassis overhaul and factory-spec suspension rebuild. This car was scheduled for Vegas Motor Speedway's annual showcase, and failing here meant losing not just a client, but nationwide prestige. Danny laid out the timeline like a chessboard. 2 weeks for strip down, 3 for frame alignment, and another week for assembly. Ricardo nodded, eyes gleaming at the challenge. But as soon as the clock started, so did the derailment. First, he misread the blueprints, flipped the front and rear torque specs, sending springs meant for the back onto the wrong end of the frame. The car became lopsided, like a seesaw parked in neutral. Then he swapped the brake lines on one wheel, igniting a small hydraulic leak that forced a halt and required a fresh purge of brake fluid. Each correction ate into the tight schedule, while Danny's phone buzzed with reminders of the approaching showcase deadline. The crew watched those sleek curves taunt them from the lift, the Corvette's missing wheels and exposed chassis mocking their delays. Ricardo's biggest blunder, however, came when he decided to improvise a custom bracket for a transmission mount. His proudest idea, he claimed. His welds looked solid at first glance, but under load, the bracket warped, sending the drive shaft into a violent shudder test that nearly cracked the tail housing. The repair took 3 more days of laser measurements, forging a precise replacement, and Danny's temper flared hotter than a blown head gasket. He confronted Ricardo in the shop bay, engines humming around them like angry bees, and demanded accountability. Ricardo admitted he'd tried to save time by skipping a custom fabrication jig. The result, 3 lost days and a Corvette still not roadworthy. Yet, in true Counts Customs fashion, there was a glimmer of redemption. Under Danny's mentorship, Ricardo learned exacting measurement techniques, mandated jig checks, and partnered with seasoned fabricators to double verify every setup. When the Corvette finally rolled out, late but flawless, it drove smoother than a '63 Corvette ever deserved to. Danny slapped Ricardo's back in front of the whole crew, acknowledging that number 3s can evolve with enough discipline. But that Corvette remains a running cautionary tale. Brilliance without structure can cause more wrecks than breakthroughs. Number 2 on Danny's list illustrates how charm can sometimes be a mechanic's worst enemy. Step forward Marisol, Counts resident, people person. She managed client relations, office logistics, and occasionally pitched in on light mechanical tasks. Her smooth talk and genuine sympathy made her a star at customer pickups. Tears wiped away, promises of extra polish delivered, and follow-up calls that made clients feel like lifelong friends. But when deadlines loomed, Marisol's desire to please collided catastrophically with shop reality. Case in point, the Green Goblin Ford Bronco custom build. Marisol assured a VIP client that every detail, from hand-stitched leather to custom LED lighting, would be completed on a tight 3-week turnaround. She framed the promise as a grand gesture. Vegas lights on wheels ready for your winter gala, she'd cooed, eyes twinkling. The client prepaid a hefty deposit, expecting a midnight delivery drip of draped velvet when the build was unveiled at a private party. Marisol circulated progress updates on social media, teasing glimpses of neon underglow and diamond-stitched bench seats. Fans waited with bated breath. Back in the shop, however, the Bronco sat half dismantled. The frame was powder-coated but awaiting final graphics. The seats were delivered, but missing the bespoke piping Marisol had sold. The LED module circuits were unassembled tubes in bins marked planned. The crew worked miracles to hit milestones rather than deadlines. When the 11th hour frenzy arrived, engines revved around the Bronco like growling lions, but it still wasn't ready. The client called, first gently, then impatiently, then furious. Marisol tried to soothe him with empty platitudes. We've got it, right around the corner. I'll personally oversee final touches. In the end, the Bronco rolled out 3 days late, half-assembled wiring left for the client's driver to finish, and the VIP gala spotlight passing it by. The reputation blowback stung the most. Danny gathered the staff and laid it out. Your word is our bond. You can't roast marshmallows on broken promises. Marisol's well-meaning spin had turned into a public relations inferno that cost more than corrective labor. It cost trust. She learned the hard way that in Counts Customs, honesty is non-negotiable, and overselling a timeline is the fastest route to the slowest build. Number 1 on Danny's ignominious roster is Sam, Counts Customs' most infamous shop technician. From day one, Sam seemed to radiate enthusiasm. He strode into the garage with a fresh tool belt, a beaming grin, and promises of groundbreaking improvements to engine tuning. Under ordinary circumstances, Danny would have welcomed that kind of zeal. But Sam's brand of eagerness almost cost the shop its reputation and its bottom line. It began innocently enough during pre-production for a 1955 Chevy Bel Air build destined for the Las Vegas Classics Expo. Sam bragged he could shave weeks off the engine break-in process by modifying the camshaft profile himself. "Trust me," he insisted. "I've got the specs memorized." Danny, intrigued but cautious, allowed Sam to pilot the first phase under supervision. For 2 days, Sam pored over dyno charts, swapped lifters, and adjusted valve clearances. But on day 3, as the engine roared to life, it seized within seconds, metal shards rattling inside the block. The dyno operator's camera captured the catastrophic failure, a plume of smoke, shards of aluminum, and Sam's stunned silence. Repairs cost the shop over 10 grand in replacement components and dyno reset fees. Danny's tolerance frayed. "Sam, precision isn't optional," he warned. Sam apologized, dismantled the motor, and vowed to rebuild it himself. But the real disaster was yet to come. Next, Sam volunteered to manage the shop's inventory audit, convinced he could identify missing parts by reviewing past project receipts. Armed with a clipboard and determination, he spent a full week cross-referencing invoices, only to misfile half the entries. When a client called for a rare '67 Corvette hubcap, Sam confidently assured the part was in stock, only to discover weeks later that the hubcap had already been shipped on a different job, lost in his misfiled paperwork. Meanwhile, priceless NOS trim kits vanished from inventory. After a frantic search, Danny discovered they'd been consigned to the wrong storage unit. By then, the shop had lost a high-profile dealership contract due to delivery delays. Then came the final straw, a safety violation that could have shut the entire garage down. Sam took charge of cleaning up a hydraulic fluid spill under a customer's classic Mustang. Rather than cordoning off the area and applying absorbent pads, he mopped it up with rags, smearing a thin, invisible film across the concrete. Next morning, 2 welders slipped and fell, headfirst into a rack of windshields. One shattered a prized windshield slated for a '69 Camaro restoration. The other narrowly avoided serious injury. OSHA fines followed, and Danny faced angry calls from the Mustang's owner demanding restitution for both the windshield and a personal injury scare. At that point, Danny knew Sam's tenure had to end. He sat Sam down in his office, laid out the mounting incident reports, and delivered the verdict. "I believe you can improve, but Counts Customs isn't a training ground for life or death errors." Sam protested, tears welling in his eyes, insisting he'd learned from every mistake. But the cumulative cost, in money, time, and morale, was simply too high. In the aftermath, the shop reevaluated its onboarding procedures. No new hire allowed to touch a wrench before passing a rigorous skills assessment on a training motor. Inventory management moved to a digital platform with barcode scanning and real-time alerts for misplaced items. And every technician now attends a monthly safety briefing that reviews spill protocols, personal protective equipment, and emergency response drills. Why does Sam's saga matter? Because it highlights the non-negotiable standards that have made Counts Customs a marquee name in auto restoration. Passion is vital, but without precision, communication, and safety, even the best intentions can become the biggest liabilities. Danny sums it up best. "We build dreams, but we can't gamble with quality or lives to make them come true." So there you have it. Alex, Shelley, Ricardo, Marisol, and Sam, the worst of the worst. Each brought lessons in accountability and resilience. Alex learned that talent demands focus. Shelley discovered that detail orientation must pair with follow-through. Ricardo proved that creativity requires disciplined checks. Marisol found that honesty underpins every promise. And Sam reminded the entire shop that safety and precision are sacred. If you've ever wondered how a high-stakes restoration shop survives under the hot neon glare of the Vegas Strip, it comes down to this: hiring the right people, imposing the highest standards, and never shying away from tough conversations. Danny Koker may be the Count, but his real kingdom is built on flawless execution and unyielding integrity. That's why, despite these 5 cautionary tales, Counts Customs continues to roar louder than any engine, because they learned, adapted, and refused to compromise. In the wake of these 5 cautionary tales, Danny Koker made a decision that would define Counts Customs' future. He wouldn't just replace or reprimand errant employees. He would rebuild the entire shop culture from the ground up. Gone were the days of learning only through frustration and failure. Now, every hire, whether a seasoned metalworker, a promising apprentice, or an office coordinator, would enter a system designed to harness passion, channel skill, and eliminate the avoidable mistakes that had once nearly derailed the business. It started with a simple monthly gathering, the crew huddle. Each Monday morning, before a wrench was picked up or an order dispatched, the entire staff, from parts runners to paint specialists to Dave in accounting, would convene under the high bay lights. Danny himself led these sessions, opening with a candid rundown of last week's triumphs and tribulations. He'd spotlight a flawless restoration on a customer's vintage Mustang, then contrast it with a near miss in the lift bay. This ritual removed mystery from accountability. Successes were celebrated out loud, slip-ups dissected in real time, and everyone left with clear action items. Parallel to the crew huddle, Danny instituted the mentor pairing program. No new technician could wander the shop unsupervised. They were always paired with a veteran, someone who had earned Danny's trust through consistent precision. Mentors weren't just coaches on steel fabrication or suspension geometry. They taught new hires the soft skills that kept the shop humming. How to read Danny's often unspoken signals, how to shift between collaborative brainstorming and razor-sharp focus, and how to communicate delays before they became disasters. Under this structure, talent matured faster and errors diminished visibly. Behind the scenes, Counts Customs administrative systems underwent a digital revolution. Where Shelley's misfiled requisitions once brought production to a halt, now every part carried a barcode tracked by real-time inventory software. Alerts pinged on technicians' tablets the instant a crucial component dipped below threshold. Mechanics no longer wondered if an order was lost. They simply scanned the part they needed and watched ETA updates roll in on their screens. This transparency freed up time and mental energy, allowing everyone to devote their full attention to craftsmanship. Meanwhile, the shop's Safety and Standards Council, a rotating committee of 5 employees from different departments, met biweekly. They reviewed near misses, brainstormed spill response improvements, and audited personal protective equipment use. Instead of punitive oversight, these sessions were collaborative. Technicians volunteered suggestions, office staff offered logistical insights, and Danny occasionally surprised them by donning a headset and laying out suggestions of his own. The result? A unified shop floor where safety was ingrained, not imposed. Culture change demanded more than policies. It required rituals that celebrated continuous learning. When Alex finally nailed that flawless quarter-panel weld, the shop erupted into spontaneous cheers, and Danny awarded him a custom-made Weld of the Week pin. When Shelley logged a perfect run of parts orders for 3 straight weeks, she earned a dinner on Danny at his favorite steakhouse. Little tokens of recognition transformed the workplace into a crucible of camaraderie, signaling that growth was the real reward. Over time, these investments bore fruit in both headline-building builds and the shop's day-to-day rhythm. Projects once delayed by miscommunication or uneven skills now glided through standard operating procedures, from strip-down to road test, often ahead of schedule. The Corvette that Ricardo struggled with became his signature piece once he mastered the jig checks, a sleek metallic blue tribute to patient discipline. Marisol, after her Bronco fiasco, emerged as a keynote presenter at industry conferences, sharing frank lessons on setting realistic client expectations. Even Sam, though he never returned as technician, was invited back as a guest speaker on how good intentions must always align with rigorous standards. Counts Customs' reputation soared accordingly. Magazine covers showcased record-setting restorations, television crews returned with behind-the-build specials, and Danny's social channels transformed from flashy teasers to masterclasses in auto craftsmanship. More importantly, the team felt a renewed sense of ownership. Each member could point to a system they helped improve, a safety protocol they shaped, or a process they did more than just follow. That collective pride accelerated performance and attracted top-tier talent who wanted to work where accountability meant empowerment. In the high-stakes arena of Las Vegas custom shops, the difference between a one-time fix and a lasting legacy lies in how you learn from mistakes. Danny's 5 worst employees forced painful reckonings, but he refused to let their failures define his shop ceiling. Instead, he turned them into stepping stones, architecting a workplace where passion thrived on structure and creativity flourished within guardrails. So what can you take from the Counts Customs playbook? First, celebrate transparency, shine a light on both wins and slip-ups, and encourage candid conversation. Second, invest in mentorship. Pair raw talent with proven expertise to accelerate growth. Third, embrace systems. Whether it's digital inventory or regular safety audits, clarity beats chaos. Finally, never underestimate the power of recognition. A small reward can ignite the motivation that elevates an entire team. In the end, Danny Koker's greatest restoration wasn't a mid-century convertible or a showroom-grade hot rod. It was Counts Customs itself. From 5 cautionary tales emerged a culture of precision, trust, and shared purpose. And that, more than any gleaming paint job, is why the Count's empire continues to roar down the strip, one flawless restoration at a time. Looking across the shop floor after months of iterative improvement, the energy felt different. Tools clicked against metal with confident precision. Welding arcs danced in crisp arcs rather than sputtered sparks, and order sheets lay neatly aligned beneath task lights. For the first time, each technician truly understood the rhythms of Counts Customs, moving in concert rather than clashing like threads in a frayed rope. Where once miscommunication and impatience had lurked in corners, now a quiet competence reigned. Engines were rebuilt with exact tolerances, paint booths humbly accepted only flawless panels, and late-night troubleshooting sessions dwindled to zero. Customers sensed the shift, too. Builds that had once required frantic calls and deadline renegotiations now sailed smoothly from concept drawings to final road tests. Amid these technical triumphs, another transformation quietly took place: the evolution of the crew itself. Alex, once the inconsistent welder, now stood beside the pantograph machine like a seasoned pro, selecting sheet metal gauges with unerring instinct. Shelley's parts ordering dashboard flashed green day after day. No more missing hoses or stray panels. Ricardo's signature Corvette chassis appeared in trade magazines as a case study in disciplined craftsmanship, each bracket and gusset proof that talent, traced by structure, yields art. Marisol, once burned by overpromising, had become a trusted liaison who set realistic expectations and celebrated every milestone with clients. Even Sam, invited back as an honorary speaker, reminded everyone that hard lessons, when honored, become the bedrock of collective wisdom. The cumulative effect of these changes extended beyond the garage bays. Danny noticed it in unexpected places. When he stepped onto the showroom floor to greet a VIP client, he saw genuine confidence in his crew's posture. He overheard colleagues offering constructive feedback instead of biting criticism. He discovered that downtime had shrunk because everyone anticipated each other's needs. Tools were prepped, schedules updated, and safety checks conducted before a single bolt was turned. The resulting productivity gains translated directly into client satisfaction and profit margins that allowed the shop to subsidize community initiatives. Counts Customs could now fund scholarships for aspiring fabricators and host free, build your own hot rod clinics for local youth, endeavors that would have been impossible under the old culture. Yet, even amid this success, Danny remained vigilant. He knew complacency was the silent cousin of failure, waiting behind closed doors to undo every hard-earned gain. So he doubled down on continuous learning, inviting guest experts to teach advanced welding techniques, holding quarterly retreats focused on creative problem-solving, and opening the doors of Counts Labs for anyone who craved hands-on R&D opportunities. The lab became a playground for innovation, where new alloys, experimental finishes, and even hybrid electric drivetrain conversions underwent rigorous testing before entering the mainstream build rotation. This fearless embrace of experimentation kept the shop at the cutting edge, reminding everyone that mastery demands both discipline and daring. Perhaps the most surprising outcome of Danny's cultural renaissance was its ripple effect throughout Las Vegas. Rival shops began a quiet revolution of their own, adopting similar huddles, mentorship schemes, and digital workflow platforms. Industry publications hailed Counts Customs as a phoenix that rose from the ashes of its own mistakes, and conventions invited Danny to keynote sessions about turning failures into frameworks. But for all the accolades, he measured success by something more personal. The occasional glance at his crew's faces during a challenging build, seeing spark plugs ignited not by fear of reprimand, but by pride and shared purpose. Looking forward, the shop faces new battles: advances in electric vehicles, demands for even more exotic customizations, and the ever-present pressure of a 24/7 digital spotlight. Yet if the saga of these 5 worst employees taught anything, it's that resilience grows where accountability and empathy intertwine. By forging a culture that prizes both unflinching standards and sincere support, Danny Koker ensured that Counts Customs would not merely survive the next disruption, but would reshape it in its image. And whenever a fresh-faced recruit arrives, awed by the legend of the Strip's finest restoration shop, Danny's parting advice remains as true as ever. Bring your passion, but bring your precision. Because here, your reputation is built one flawless finish at a time. In the months that followed the full overhaul of Counts Customs culture, Danny noticed an unexpected phenomenon. Creativity began to bloom where chaos once reigned. Technicians who had once hesitated to voice ideas, worried that experimentation might undermine standards, now pitched innovations with confidence. They tested new finishes inspired by aerospace alloys, explored lightweight composite materials for custom trim, and even volunteered to learn CAD programming so they could draft their own jigs. What started as a rigid framework to eliminate mistakes had become a launchpad for ingenuity. In every corner of the shop, passion and precision were no longer competing forces, but a powerful alliance. This evolution rippled outward. Clients returned not only for flawless restorations, but for exclusive access to Counts Labs prototypes. Angled carbon fiber dash bezels, ceramic baked enamel finishes that shimmered under neon lights, and hybrid drivetrains retrofitted into classic chassis. Word spread that beyond impeccable craftsmanship, Counts Customs offered cutting-edge possibilities that few shops dared to attempt. As Danny put it in a recent interview, "We didn't crush creativity with rules. We gave it a runway." That runway, built on a foundation of accountability, allowed each team member to take calculated risks, knowing that failure wouldn't mean blame, but a chance to refine the process. For Danny, the ultimate reward was seeing the next generation of fabricators walk through the doors with resumes boasting college degrees and competition medals. They arrived drawn by the shop's reputation for innovation and respect for structure, a stark contrast to the all-too-common narrative of unregulated garages where talent too often went unshaped. Under the high bay's warm glow, mentors and mints worked side by side, sharing techniques as well as life lessons. How to balance boldness with responsibility, and how to let humility guide even the most dazzling success. The transformation of Counts Customs also reshaped the Las Vegas custom car ecosystem. Rival shops began sending their junior staff to participate in Danny's open workshops, where he demonstrated advanced welding methods and led discussions on client communication strategies. Industry conferences added panels on cultural engineering, highlighting Counts Customs as a case study in turning personnel pitfalls into performance pillars. Vendors whose parts once sat ignored in dusty bins now found themselves in front of the shop's new digital inventory interface, thrilled by insights into usage patterns and predictive reorder analytics. Yet despite this newfound status as trendsetter, Danny remained resolutely focused on the shop floor. He knew that no accolade or media appearance could replace the daily rituals that had forged Counts Customs anew. The Monday crew huddles, the mentor pairings, the monthly Weld of the Week awards, and the rigorous safety drills that had once felt like chores but now felt like a shared language. Each ritual reinforced the principle that continuous improvement was not a destination but a journey, one that demanded both discipline and grace. As this chapter of Counts Customs' story closes, the lessons endure for anyone building a team. Excellence thrives when standards are high, but support is higher. Transparency transforms errors into collective intelligence, and recognition turns individual wins into team momentum. By refusing to sweep mistakes under the carpet, and instead elevating them into teachable moments, Danny Koker cultivated a workspace where everyone, from seasoned pros to eager apprentices, could drive both craftsmanship and culture forward.